Disney and Lucasfilm, if you see this, please still hire us, though I didn't mean anything bad I said. I promise I didn't mean anything bad I said. Please, please, please still hire us. After the sequel trilogy, if you look up Star Wars video essay, you get these. Star Wars is dead, it's a declining brand, fans are mad, blah 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 blah. You get the gist. While I do understand that the American people love a dumpster fire witch hunt, so criticism and pessimism sell, I genuinely think Star Wars is redeemable.
I saved you.
So, like Rey setting out to save our bad space tyrant Kylo Ren, I was gonna put it on myself to fix Star Wars. Who am I kidding? I am the walking stereotype of people who will never understand Star Wars. So, I'm gonna fight fire with fire and have one of your hardcore Star Wars fans to help me fix Star Wars. This is Noah. He goes to UT Austin and has beat me to Star Wars by about a decade. Probably longer. He is the most credible Star Wars fandom expert I could find, and together we constructed a grand plan to restore the glory of Star Wars. Our plan starts by getting down to the basics. So, in a sentence, what is Star Wars?
I think Star Wars is years of imagination carried by a fan base for many, many years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's much more broad than what I have made
what's your sentence?
I wrote space beings fighting power in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago.
I mean, that is what it is.
Yeah, but the brand of Star Wars is definitely broader than space beings fighting power.
Yeah, that's at surface level. That's what it is.
Let's discuss what exactly is the brand.
I think it literally comes down to the characters. That is the brand. The brand is Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Darth Maul. The artistic visuals connected to these characters. That is what I think of for Star Wars. I don't necessarily think of the editing or maybe the music. The music is a key part of it as well, but I think the brand is the characters. That's what they market. That's what they use to tell their stories. I mean, I guess every story is told with a character, but Star Wars literally revolves around the intricate family legacies of these characters and their histories, and it's the characters. That is the brand of Star Wars, the characters.
Like we said, Star Wars is essentially carried by its fans. That doesn't just mean supports. It's such an influential franchise that many of its fans grew up to write for it. Its open door policy for creative inputs is part of what makes Star Wars unique. Well, that is if everyone actually realized that. The sequel trilogy got a lot of backlashes because of the way these stories are told. Some hardcore fans feel like the twists are too deliberate, some traditions are flipped, and Rian Johnson ruined the whole trilogy by making Luke a hermit. To that, Noah made some really good points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased because I spoke to Rian Johnson once. I interviewed him about Knives Out, and he is a very nice man and a very creative man. Obviously, Rian Johnson sees these characters differently than J.J. Abrams, and I think it was an idiotic decision to have J.J. start the trilogy and end it, and then someone do the meat of the trilogy, another vision. I think you're going to screw things up. But what's funny to me is when that movie came out, the fans and people hated it. They thought it ruined their favorite characters. They assume they know the characters better than the writers. And I know even Mark Hamill, who plays Luke, he had even said he didn't quite agree with it, but he went along with it. He obviously views Luke as a higher character because he was Luke. He doesn't want to see Luke become a hermit. And I think it's very much Rian Johnson taking the wheel and saying, I'm going to do what I can. I have these characters in my hand. Let's go into some territory that's going to, ruffle a few feathers. And I think J.J. Abrams tried to bring it back to a more straightforward, linear kind of what you'd expect. But I didn't find the enjoyment any different. This is a director making choices. It's their vision. Like, I'm sorry if you share a different opinion than the director. It doesn't mean that theirs is any less valuable. It just means you wouldn't have went that direction. I thought it was fine. I think it takes risks. So be it.
Exactly. Star Wars itself was a risk. George Lucas had the ambition to make something different from traditional science fictions. He wanted to make documentary fantasy, and it wasn't something that had been done in Hollywood before. Risks are embedded in the creation and the narratives of Star Wars. And both Noah and I agree that the real problem with Episode 8 was not that it took the risk and challenged the fandom. The problem was that they did it at the wrong time. Had they let Rian Johnson start or end the trilogy, it probably would have been very different. By the way, in my opinion, the kiss between Finn and Rose is the real atrocity of Episode 8. I'll get to that later, but before that, I need a drink. Earlier, Noah mentioned that the brand of Star Wars is essentially their characters. And I think that is because those characters are an epitome of the documentary fantasy George Lucas was trying to build. Because everyone in Star Wars exists before Star Wars. The Star Wars universe is a used universe, and that is the biggest legacy and asset of Star Wars. Every time we arrive at a new planet, we see a glimpse of what life is like on that planet. Even though most of them look pretty shabby and somehow a lot of them are dirty crime hubs. Star Wars universe is so vastly diverse that it provides infinite possibilities for storytelling. However, I don't see the sequel trilogy really using this asset. Most of the sequel is just reiterating what we already know from the last 6 movies and repeat the same tropes. The fight continues, and no more information about the rebellion or the First Order has been given to us. On the contrary, the spin-offs are doing a much better job at promoting the documentary fantasy that made Star Wars stand out in the first place. And hey, the expert agrees with me.
Yeah, I think like the big selling point of Star Wars is not like the story itself, is the universe that existing. Like it has such a huge background that like no other no other franchise in the world has.
Yeah.
Like just like every single thing in a different planet kind of gives you a glimpse into like what life in that planet is like, but you don't really get into it. But there's so much opportunity for you to get into it, and that's why I feel like Star Wars shouldn't be having like trilogies. Like trilogies should not be their main focus anymore. Like they should be focusing on making movies like Rogue One or like Solo, where things
were unique. I know a lot of people hated Solo. I loved it. I think I gave it 5 stars, like on an app I was using. I just thought it was so fun. I just think when you take these little slivers of the worlds we already know and you deep dive into them, there's less stakes. You don't have to worry about like the future of these characters. I mean, I guess in Solo, you kind of have to worry about it.
Also, you know what happens to them already.
Exactly. They're safer territory. And I think Star Wars needs to kind of stop walking on tightropes, because when you're playing with, family lineage, making the Emperor related to this person, Darth Vader related to this person, you're asking for the fans to compare it with the movies they literally fell in love with as kids. Like I mean, this is a kind of weird thing to say, but imagine if the new trilogy came out when all these new fans were little kids. I guarantee they would have enjoyed it probably just as much. It has just as many weird characters, weird locations, and I'm sure like it's just skewed. When you grow up with something you love, you're gonna expect more from it, but that thing you love is gonna keep trying to be what little you loved, but you've outgrown kind of what little you wants to see. And that's I think what they set themselves up. The fans set themselves up for disappointment. I really enjoyed the last movie that just came out. I thought it was fun, Rise of Skywalker. People hated it. They critiqued it, and like I was just sitting there like, this is awesome. There's effects, you got the battles, you got cool set pieces. I thought the Emperor was super spooky. Like I thought it was cool, but of course people are gonna dissect it and think they did this wrong. This doesn't fit with that character. Like that is not why that movie was made. It was not made for you to turn it into a think piece. That is my opinion.
So, part of the reason why the sequel trilogy is being trashed by fans is not because it's outrageously bad. It's just that the fans have grown up. It no longer excites them when they see the same plot play out on screen. They want more. It's normal that we outgrow our favorite things as kids, but Disney just can't quite grasp that there's a line between nostalgia and repetition. When Disney took over Star Wars, they did what they always do. They Disneyanized the franchise. Everything became marketable and welcoming to all ages. The villains are not really villains, and the actually bad people had pretty much the same amount of screen time as the Pogs. In the sequel trilogy, there's no longer the sophisticated dark plots that stimulated people so much in prequels. So when the OG fans get the prequels as an adult version of their Star Wars, the millennials and Gen Z fans got these new twists that, despite being pretty thoughtful, they never really asked for. Because Disney was trying to play into this family-friendly narrative, the sequel trilogy became monotone and formulated in terms of plots. For 3 movies, all we see is deliberation, raid, retreat on repeat, plus Rey and bad boy Kylo Ren's rivalry to allyship to whoever the fuck this is. It's very much like the originals, it's just less of a novelty. In comparison, the spin-offs got to carry on the cool stuff, probably because of their seemingly less significant position to the franchise and a more niche marketing position. Killing everyone in Rogue One, in my opinion, is the most masterful thing they did to the franchise in the past decade. I mean, not only did it make sense, it enhanced our appreciation and understanding for Episode 4 and the entire franchise. The popularity of Rogue One, The Mandalorian, and Per Noah's compliments Solo says something about how Star Wars should proceed. They should really take the documentary fantasy seriously and explore the universe with diversified narratives.
I kind of wish Disney would sort of do what I guess what DC is doing, where they're kind of making different movies for different demographics. Like, let's see, like Aquaman. That's a movie that a lot of young kids could get into. It's fun. It's a lot of effects. Then you have something like Joker for, adults who want to kind of see the more intensive themes with these characters. Then you got Birds of Prey, which was an R-rated, badass movie with blood and awesome characters. Like they're really catering to different audiences as opposed to Star Wars, which like a Star Wars movie is an event. Like you're going to get all ages there. And I think that's an impossible battle to win. So I really wish Star Wars would kind of maybe do a horror movie set in the Star Wars universe, or maybe, I know they have the TV show, The Mandalorian. I think that's a step in the right direction, kind of making these other entities that are in a different format, follow a different world. Yeah, that's what I have to say about it.
Well, on the note of diversity, we need to talk about tokenism. Again, the Star Wars universe is inherently diverse. Therefore, a diverse representation of the cast will only help enhance the storytelling because we tend to understand a story by relating it to the world we live in. I'm not saying that casting John Boyega, Carly Marie Chan, and Oscar Isaac is tokenism, but I'm also not saying that. It's bad. Yes, they have a lot of screen time, and yes, they are pretty useful to an extent, but really they don't have much agencies. Finn and Rose are little worker bees sent to shoot up the First Order on demand. Pew, 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 pew. Their subplot is so unnecessary that the climax of that subplot became a meme. Their plots have a setup, and then develops to nothing. Just expensive imagery farts. Rogue One, again, did a much better job at representations. Is it because it's not directed by an American? Everyone matters in Rogue One, and I just love an international cast. And they actually show that they care. As a Chinese person living abroad, do you have any idea how proud I was to see Jiang Wen and Donnie Yen on screen? And their characters made a difference. They were funny.
Are you kidding me? I'm blind.
They had personalities.
Don't go. Don't go. I'm here. I'm here. It's okay. It's okay. Look for the Force. True.
This scene particularly strikes me because it shows their individual beliefs and their relationships independent of the white characters. Chirrut is a believer in the Force, and his actions were driven by his faith rather than commands from the rebellion. This is an example of representation done right when the characters played by non-white actors have agencies. And that's what good representation means. Unfortunately, the higher profile trilogies failed at doing so. They just became a diversity trap. And that's what they need to be better at. Star Wars has always been a pioneer franchise. Even as an adult first-time watcher, I'm still fascinated by the wild imaginations and insane talents that make this franchise unique. I love it. And so does Noah. That's why we wanted to fix it. So, here's our proposal. Number 1, we love the tell your stories policy, but they need to have a more solid plan for future trilogies. Have consistency in the storytelling. I mean, The Last Jedi should be enough of a lesson. Number 2, honestly, less trilogies. Disney and Lucasfilm should probably go easy on the universe-altering events and develop more independent stories instead. Take advantage of the documentary fantasy that made this franchise special. More Solo, more Mandalorian, and more Star Wars stories, like Rogue One. Number 3, while it's super important to carry on the traditions of Jedi, the Force, space shootouts, and maybe killing your dad, they also need to remember that nostalgia does not equal to repetition. They gotta diversify the storytelling. And number 4, enough with tokenism. It's 2020. People have died for that shit. There you have it. We fixed Star Wars! If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notification. Noah has a podcast called The Dive In, where he and other film buffs discuss the hottest films in depth. I've put the link to his YouTube channel and podcast down below. Go take a look. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.